Hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. I'm so pumped you're tuning in today because we're about to go on an absolutely epic hero's journey. Today, we're looking at some incredible source material that talks all about what it takes to stand strong. I mean, really strong, when doing the right thing feels, well, almost impossible, right? Have you ever felt like you're the only one trying to do the right thing? Like literally everyone around you is just taking the easy way out? Well, guess what? You're definitely not alone. Today, we're going to unlock the secrets of a couple of history's absolute greatest heroes to see exactly how they stood tall when the pressure was cranked way up.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you ever been tempted to do the wrong thing just because, well, because everyone else was doing it? Maybe it's at school or hanging out on the playground or, playing video games with your friends online. Someone suggests breaking a rule or being kind of mean to someone or maybe taking something that isn't yours. And the absolute loudest voice in the room is just going, oh, come on, everybody's doing it. It's really no big deal, right? We've all heard that. That right there is peer pressure. It's this heavy weight that pushes on you, trying to make you bend, and it takes a massive amount of strength to resist it.
But the source text we're analyzing today gives us a literal superpower to fight off that peer pressure. It's called unyielding integrity. Okay, I know, those are pretty big words, so let's break them down. The text says a person with integrity is not vacillating. Vacillating is just a super fancy word for flip-flopping. Imagine a jellyfish, right? Just sort of floating aimlessly wherever the ocean current pushes it. That's vacillating. Unyielding, on the other hand, means you are like a solid rock. You don't bend, you don't break, and you definitely don't change your mind about what's good and true. Unyielding integrity means you do the right thing 100% of the time, even when it's super hard and even when nobody else is doing it.
Section 1. What is a standard? So our source text quotes this really ancient instruction from the book of Isaiah. It says, lift up a standard for the people. Now, think of a standard kind of like the ultimate measuring stick. Imagine you're trying to win a gold medal in the high jump. The standard is that super high bar you have to jump over. Or you can think of it like a giant, waving flag carried by a leader in an epic battle. That flag is the standard. It shows everyone else exactly where they need to rally, where they need to look, and what great principles of truth and duty they're actually fighting for. God's standard is like that perfect flag, showing us exactly how we should live our lives.
Section 2. Daniel, the lofty cedar.
So Daniel was just a young guy when his entire world got turned totally upside down, and he was taken away to a completely foreign royal court. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the source material describes him being subjected to fierce temptations. Notice how the enemy Satan isn't shown as some crazy cartoon monster with red horns and a pitchfork. He looks almost normal, like an angel in a priest's tunic, maybe just a little wicked around the eyes. And that is exactly how temptation worked in the royal court for Daniel. It didn't look scary. Actually, it looked totally normal. It looked like really fancy food and popularity and just doing what the cool, powerful people were doing. It was a completely deceptive trap.
And this brilliantly illustrates what made Daniel so incredibly special. Even when he was surrounded by all those deceptive, really shiny temptations, Daniel's character was not changeable. Where other people yielded and just gave up, Daniel stood firm. Where other people lied or were completely false just to fit in, Daniel stayed completely true. Where others were weak and basically caved to the peer pressure of the king's court, Daniel was absolutely strong. He didn't flip-flop like our jellyfish, he was a rock. In fact, the author of our source text uses this beautiful picture to describe him. They say, Daniel was a lofty cedar of Lebanon. Now, a cedar of Lebanon isn't some weak little bush that just blows over in a breeze. No way. It is a massive, towering tree with roots that dig deep, deep down into the rocky ground. So when the fierce winds of temptation and peer pressure blew against Daniel in that royal court, he didn't snap, he didn't fall over. His roots of faith were so deep that he just stood upright, a literal towering example of unbending integrity.
Section 3. Paul, the unstoppable traveler.
All right, so if Daniel is our unmovable tree, Paul is our unstoppable force in motion. The text tells us that there's no name that shines brighter than Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles. But what was his superpower? Like, what was his fuel? Well, he literally glowed with the love of Jesus. He had this incredible encounter with the risen Christ that just completely changed him. It actually impressed the Savior's image right onto his very soul. And because of that, he became totally self-forgetful and self-denying. He just stopped worrying about what was easiest or safest for him and honestly only cared about spreading the truth. And this led to a completely action-packed, unstoppable life. The text maps out his journey in 3 distinct steps: faith, which then sparked his courage, which then built his fortitude. Now, fortitude is that super tough, never give up kind of grit. With these three traits, Paul pressed his way from land to land. He was shipwrecked, he was thrown in prison, he faced massive dangers and giant obstacles, but he was never daunted. He just kept moving forward, holding that standard high because he was driven by something so much bigger than himself.
Section 4. Will you stand the test?
Let's move to and see how this builds a bridge right to your life today. So we have Daniel, the unmovable tree, and Paul, the unstoppable traveler. But what about us? People often ask, hey, has the standard been lowered? After all, times have changed, right? It's modern times, things are different. In the past, holy men gave up absolutely everything, they cherished the Spirit, and they imitated the ultimate example. But what about today? Well, the source text is wonderfully clear on this. God accepts nothing less than this now. The standard hasn't moved a single inch. It's exactly where it was for Daniel and Paul. We're called to that exact same, totally awesome level of unyielding integrity.
So, the absolute crucial point is this final, really challenging question from the text. When called to give up all for Christ, who will stand the test? When the peer pressure hits you on the playground, when temptation looks totally normal, when doing the right thing feels like the hardest thing in the whole world, are you going to be a jellyfish just floating along with the crowd? Or are you going to be a lofty cedar tree, deeply rooted, totally unbending, and holding that standard high? The choice is entirely up to you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you go out there and stand tall.